That is metal. Nothing else looks like metal but metal in close-up. All that decoration is etched into the steel with acid. This is film armor as good as it gets. Now, there are lots of great spraying techniques, and you can spray plastic to look reflective, and increasingly it looks more and more like metal, but it doesn't behave like metal. Their armor's a little, you can see it's a little bit too flexy.
Yeah, it's squishy, isn't it?
There's something about metal that it has a weight, it has a rigidity that rubber and plastic and polyurethane don't have. He walks into the battle, and you know everything you need to know about this guy, and it's all coming out through his gear. They've taken real 15th century armor styles, mostly German, and then turned it up to 11. Sauron is wielding a mace, and maces are real. It's a hafted weapon with a wooden or a steel haft with a flanged or bladed head on one end. So all the weight of the weapon is balanced to the end.
Top heavy, yeah.
And it's a concussion weapon. And you're trying, rather than to cut or pierce your opponent, you're trying to smash through their defenses. That is way bigger in proportion to him.
Yeah, it's the fantasy component, yeah.
Than any real maces were. A real German Gothic,
look at that,
high medieval maces of the 15th century are, they're usually pretty short. They're like just a little bit, more than a foot or a bit more long. The heads are quite small.
Look how thick, though. Like, I still wouldn't want to have to deal with the business end of this. Look how thick the flanges are. And this is something that sometimes on cheap replicas that you can buy online, they get wrong. They make the flanges too thin. Look, the reality is they were very thick. One of the replicas that I had very thin flanges. And what happens is when you hit stuff with it, apart from the fact that it tends to cut into it, but not as effectively as a bladed weapon would have. So at that point, you're not really benefiting from the blunt implement. But they bend, they break, so there's that.
These really sharp blades on them, and you're focusing your energy on a really small area. A weapon doesn't need to be massive to have the effect that it needs to have.
He's absolutely right, of course, but think about it, even a tool hammer, it's small, but you can crack someone's head with it.
But massive always reads well on screen, especially when you've got a Dark Lord of Mordor. and how successfully does it use armor and weapons to bring its characters and its themes across?
Yeah.
I got to give this 10 as well.
Wow.
I love the sort of evil Statue of Liberty sort of, aesthetic here.
I did not see the Statue of Liberty at all. To me, it looks more like something with a little bit of a pagan look to it, like pagan gods melted with medieval aesthetic. To me, it's kind of a mixture of that and demonic, but I guess evil Statue of Liberty it is.
I think the star of that scene is the flail. Real flails are derived from farm implements, the articulated staffs that are used for threshing wheat. And if you have a feudal peasant army and they need to take whatever hurty things are to hand, a flail, agricultural implements are good. It's a staff with just an eye bolt articulation and then another piece of wood. When such an idea is weaponized more extensively, they add a short length of chain between the staff and the head. Flails almost exclusively are a lower class common soldier infantry weapon.
And I would say that they're not that common, they're quite rare.
Exclusively are a lower class common soldier infantry weapon. The knights didn't use them. Because they're kind of scary and they have an inherent mechanical intrigue, they've become much more famous and much more popular to the kind of popular conception of the medieval knight than they really deserve.
And even like infantry, I know in video games, apart from the knights, but oftentimes like infantrymen, they will have shield and flail, as if it was like the most typical representation of a medieval infantryman's weapon.
But it's great here. I mean, again, it totally works here. No flail was ever that big. No flail ever had a chain that long. But in this context, it works great. I can't think of another weapon that would have the kind of visual and story character-driven impact that this has in this scene. It's got.
Could I think of that? Well, first and foremost, I want to underline that yes, whenever we see massive anything, it's proportionate to the supernatural strength that the character, demon, monster, humanoid is able to have. So that, of course, needs to be taken into consideration when we look at massive weapons in fantasy within the laws. You know, for me, when you have magic, when you have different races and that sort of stuff, it's a lot easier to justify things. But then again, as long as it makes sense within that universe. So for instance, if you tell me that a halfling is using a giant sword, but you don't give me a reason, like you have to give me a reason. Well, it's a halfling, why can he do it? Or because he's got this ring that gives him plus 10 strength, then okay. And it's a different situation, but it has to be justified. So if you give a massive flail, you can tell me it's a demonic lord, so he can do whatever he wants. Then I'm fine with it. What other weapon could have communicated something like this? Maybe some sort of spear, if it was like very. But then again, I guess maybe a spear.
Ought to be a 10 out of 10.
Speak quickly.
Yeah, this is a great entrance to a character. You know, Tolkien imagined the Rohirrim as Anglo-Saxons who fought like knights on horseback.
I see.
Because the Anglo-Saxons didn't.
Yeah.
They rode horses, but they got off to fight.
Yeah, they did the shield walls for they were infantry.
They didn't fight on their horses. The design of the helmet is derived from early medieval examples. He really should have his chin strap done up. The helmet is...
Yeah, it doesn't look like it fits him. The cheek plates should be at least longer than your real cheeks. It's true, yeah, it doesn't fit him.
Riding a bit too high on his head. The brow of the helmet, the horizontal edge there, should be right down on his eyebrows to really protect the front of the skull. You want to bring that down as far as it can go. And it can go right down onto your eyebrows. So I'll stick this on, all right? This is one of my own, made for me. Okay? Now you see, that brow is right down on my eyes. And it's sticking out beyond my skull, right? So a weapon comes in, it can't get to me. The skull, it might get there, but that's still safe.
Give me your name, horsemaster.
You know, things were often more highly decorated, even for practical fighting, than modern people often imagine.
Yeah, even the dwarven helmet kind of suffers from the same problem of being a little too high, sitting a little too high.
They're going for armor that looks kind of architectural, like the dwarves build, you know, caves and they work with, you know, rock and it's under mountains and stuff.
I actually love that. I don't know why, but it reminds me of Dragon Age Origins. Any of you played that?